All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to do a fairly short, hopefully, introduction to JavaScript. I don't expect you, if you're seeing this in the 46 class, I'm going to expect you to be like a master of JavaScript or anything by the end of this class. We have 2 other full JavaScript classes. It's a big topic, but I wanted to give you kind of an introduction so you knew something about it and what it is and what it isn't, and a little bit about recognizing parts of scripts and things, and then maybe being able to adapt scripts, things like that. So some of this content, I have a link to a What is JavaScript page from MDN Web Docs. It's kind of a tutorial thing. There's tons of tutorials, obviously, on the web about it, JavaScript. And any of these links, just as a disclaimer, I have lots of links in this file, so if they're not there when you see this, that's not on me, man. It's not my fault. But hopefully they'll stay there for a while. So we'll talk a little bit about what is JavaScript, how it fits into the web development picture, how about using libraries or vanilla or plain JavaScript, some other basic uses of JavaScript, and then some specific things you can do with JavaScript. And we'll see some examples of that. And then a couple little script, or 2 little scripts, actually 2. At the bottom, there's some definitions of some things that are in the script that we will play with, just to do as an example. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is one of the 3 main things you need to know for front-end web development. The other 2 you kind of know some already, right? CSS and HTML, hopefully. You know some of that. You do need to kind of know that to be able to do JavaScript. Sometimes people try to do JavaScript development and then they really don't know HTML and CSS, which could be a problem, right? But HTML, so again, you've probably seen this, but HTML handles the structural or the content layer, kind of the framework of your information, your content, and your outline, that kind of thing. CSS is the presentation layer, people call it, which is the styles, how it looks. So this is the content, this is how it looks. And then JavaScript handles the behavior layer, or how things behave or interaction. So it kind of makes pages come alive. You can do pages, obviously, without JavaScript. We've done them already, right, with HTML and CSS, but they're kind of static, right? They kind of sit there. You can do some interaction and some animation and things with CSS, and more all the time, actually. But if you really want to get sort of web app kind of behavior, you need to use JavaScript. So JavaScript is basically commands that you can embed in the document, or you can link as an external .js file. It doesn't need any conversion before being executed. So unlike some other programs like Java and C++ and things like that, it doesn't need to be compiled. It can be compiled in situations, but it doesn't have to be. So JavaScript is executed by something called a parser inside of your browser that executes the code kind of line by line. And all browsers, all modern web browsers anyway, contain a JavaScript parser, basically something that processes the JavaScript. Another good thing about JavaScript, it's plain text, just like CSS and HTML. So you can write with any text editor. You can most people use VS Code probably at this point, but you can use anything you want. So using libraries or vanilla JavaScript. So there's lots of libraries or frameworks that have been created for JavaScript. And a library or framework, again, is just a lot of code that's sort of pre-written to do certain things to make it easier to sort of not write everything from scratch every time. So you can use plain JavaScript. Some people call it vanilla JavaScript, or you can use one of the many JavaScript libraries. So again, vanilla JavaScript is just plain written JavaScript. It's not a library. Something that's not a library is often referred to as vanilla JavaScript. So some of the big libraries, and I kind of looked on the web developer survey. I should probably show you that, but I'm not going to save time. But some JavaScript-based frameworks that are very popular. One is called Node.js. So let's see if these files open. Yeah, so what Node.js is a way to run JavaScript on a server and not necessarily in a browser. And it can do backend. It used to be JavaScript was all front end, but you can do backend stuff with Node.js. And it has the advantage of, as far as backend development, because a lot of front end developers know JavaScript. So it's kind of written in JavaScript, or it is JavaScript. So you don't have to learn a whole nother language, which is kind of cool. React is another popular thing. React.js or React, some people write it different ways. It's a JavaScript library developed originally by Facebook, which is now Meta at this point. although when you see this video, it could be called something else. It's primarily for building user interfaces or single page applications. I guess people call them SPAs, which like not the SPCA, but the SPA. So React, here's the React website. Very popular language and framework that people use for stuff. Another one's kind of a bit older, maybe. It's called jQuery. It's another JavaScript library. There's a lot of JavaScript libraries, but it has some built-in things for animation and event handling and HTML document manipulation, that kind of thing. Here's what the jQuery website looks like. So you can download. All these are free, pretty sure, by the way. So you don't have to worry about that part. There's also jQuery UI, which is something that sits on top of jQuery, which allows you to do cool things like interface components, like React does, I think. Like here's an accordion for an example, right? So that's done using some JavaScript. You can do a lot of this stuff. People do it with CSS only nowadays, more and more all the time, but a lot of times JavaScript is used. So some more general, and I was going to say too, you probably have seen stuff about Bootstrap and Foundation, right, already, or we've mentioned it. Bootstrap and Foundation both use JavaScript for some components like slideshows, etc., things like that. Yeah. So even though you think of these as CSS frameworks, they also use JavaScript. So yeah. It's everywhere. Some basic uses for JavaScript or some general uses. Web development, obviously, we kind of said that. You can do things like manipulate objects in the document object model, which we will talk about probably a little bit, or you'll see something about. Change CSS styles, respond to user events, things like that. You can do server-side development, like we said with Node.js. You can make web apps. You have to use HTML and CSS, obviously, but web apps are things that do things in web browsers, right? Like an app, it feels like an application. Well, it is an application. So you use JavaScript for that. We talked about frameworks and libraries already. You can do mobile app development, actually, using things like React Native. So you can write apps that are going to be on phones, iOS and Android, and have them deployed on iOS and Android. But you can write them in JavaScript, which is kind of cool. You can do IoT, or some people say, Internet of Things. Some people say IoT. So it's used to develop and control IoT devices like your smart refrigerator that thinks you're out of milk, but you're really not because anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You can also do game development, which is kind of cool. So here's a tutorial, if it's still there when you see this, about creating a 2D Breakout game. Breakout is an old school, like 80s video game. And then here is the actual game. So this is written using JavaScript. So in the browser, it's running in the browser, obviously. And this is a game that's super fun. Used to be called Pong, I think, back in the early 17th century. Napoleon played. Well, he's not 17th century, is he? Yeah. Anyway, I know you guys want to watch me play video games. I think people make a lot of money doing that, but not me. Okay, so that's the game. So here's some specific things you can do using JavaScript. So I thought we would try one while we go through this. So this one uses an event handler, which is onClick. So there's a button here. If I click on it right now, it doesn't do anything. But what I'm going to have you guys do, should you be so inclined, is to open up the file. I should have given you this file. It's called JavaScript Demo 1. At least this version is called. We'll see if it's called that later. And scroll down to, we're just going to do a tiny bit of JavaScript. That's the fun part, right? About line 126, and there's a button that says try it. So we're just going to add a little bit of JavaScript inside of that, which is one way you can do JavaScript. You can add JavaScript directly into HTML. So I'm going to go inside of that button. Let me get this a tiny bit bigger so you guys can see that. So I'm inside of a button, and I'm going to start typing right after the button, opening button tag. I'm going to do onClick. So there's onClick. And then inside the quotes that it puts in, that VS Code, I'm doing this in VS Code, I'm going to say alert. And then I'm going to put some brackets there, or parentheses, right? So I typed alert. And then I'm going to put a single quote. So it gets a little tricky here, but hopefully VS Code does this right for you. So you have alternating single and double quotes. And I'm going to say, hi, if I could type, name is Mark. And that is it. So what we've got here is it says on click. That's called an event handler. So an event is something that is triggered by different things, including the user. So on click means basically you clicked on this button. So you can recognize event handlers because they start with on. And then whatever the actual JavaScript part is between here, between these quotes. So alert is going to pop up, if this works, it's going to pop up an alert window that says, hi, my name is Mark. You can put your name. That's how I know that you guys actually did this. Put your name, not Mark. Unless your name is Mark, then you can do that. Put Mark in there. Yeah. So if I go back here, now I've got a button. If I click on it, let's see if it works. Oh, look. It says, I'm in the browser. I'm doing a live view, of course, right? So I'm in live view. And it says, hi, my name is Mark. Which is weird that a browser would call itself Mark, but hey. Marks are the coolest, so I guess that makes sense. So there you go. There's your first little piece of JavaScript. Hopefully I don't have a warning here, but I don't think I do. All right, so let's go back here. That was the first one. We'll do one more little script in a little bit here. So some more things you can do with JavaScript. This is just kind of a random list of things. You can do asynchronous page loading. So basically you can have information loading from a server as needed without having to reload the whole page. That's called Ajax. There's other ways to do that too, but that's how you can have a page instantly do things without you having to click on reload or anything like that. You can display messages to the user like a alert box. Hey, we just did that. Look at that. You can animate images or create rollovers. And here's a couple of libraries, a couple of popular libraries for animation. One's called GSAP. I don't know what GSAP stands for. But ooh, look at that crazy animation. This is another framework that you can use, but this one's kind of specifically for animation. So this is stuff that was made with GSAP. And I've actually got a pretty cool, here's another one. This is in a CodePen. This is inside a CodePen. And so you can see the HTML and the CSS, and here's the JavaScript. There's quite a bit of JavaScript in here. But it is using GSAP, so you don't have to write everything from scratch. Although it does look like it's written from scratch, but it's not. It's 360 lines, 343 lines. But a lot of scroll-based animation, which you've probably seen, right, is done using JavaScript or scroll-based animation. So if I scroll here, this is pretty cool. The plane flies, and then it turns into a wireframe, and then some lines are drawn. So you've seen this a lot, right? I'm going to use the scroll bar instead of the wheel. It's talking about different parts of an airplane, and then it's going to fly and run into it. No, it runs right past us. Yeah. So that is scroll-based animation using JavaScript and GSAP. GSAP. Another animation library is called Anime. I don't think it has anything to do with anime, but anime.js or I think anime.js. There's another one. So I just linked to a couple that are kind of popular. You can show or hide content based on user interaction. I already showed you that, but I think this one is in, let me see, where did it go? This one, no, that's the same one I already showed you. I was going to show you the one in Bootstrap. Bootstrap has the same thing. So Bootstrap uses JavaScript to do its accordion too. You can do light boxes. Hopefully you've seen this already, but maybe not. This is a cool way to do a popover or a modal gallery with JavaScript. So what is a modal gallery? It tells you how you can download this JavaScript file and the necessary files to do this. But basically what it does is if I click on, I have some thumbnails here, right? If I click on one of them, then it grays out the background. You've probably seen this interaction before. And then if I roll over, I get these little arrows, and I can click through this gallery, and I can put in captions and a close. Actually, I can click anywhere and it'll close. But it animates a little bit between the images, and if I click away, it closes. So this is called Lightbox 2. I've been recommending it for years. There's probably hundreds of these, but this one seems to work pretty well. So it tells you how to use it, how to install it, all the parameters. You have a lot of control over what it does too. Well documented. So that is Lightbox 2. Here's some other slideshow. Oh, here's the Bootstrap one. Slideshow plugins. This one's called Cycle 2, and this one is the one in Bootstrap. So this is Cycle 2, which has a bunch of cool possible different ways you can do slideshows and animations and things. And this is the carousel. It's called a carousel. It's basically a slideshow inside of Bootstrap. So this is what I meant is by it is Bootstrap has JavaScript inside of it. So if I click on here, I can see this slideshow. And this is all pre-written for you. Since it's a library, you just have to put in the code and change a few things, and then you've got a slideshow, which are kind of falling out of favor, to be honest. But yeah, if you want to do one, it's pretty easy. You can do other things like detect browsers. You can interact with user or handle user events, like somebody clicking on a form element. You can use it for validation. You can also do that with CSS a bit now, but you can do form validation, which means you can check if somebody put in, say, a legitimate email formatted address for an email address or not, and then say like, hey, this is not an email address. It doesn't have an @ symbol, something like that. You can obviously build programming into your HTML page using JavaScript. For example, you could change the contents of the page based on the day of the week or the time or where they are and all kinds of things like that. So like if somebody accessed the page in the morning, you could say like, good morning, Ryan, which I don't know who Ryan is, but yeah. You can use it to do, it can do math as well. So you can use it as a downloadable computation engine. You can make calculators and things. Here is if it's still here when you guys see this, this is a calculator done in CodePen using JavaScript. Let's see if it's right. Oh, that is right. Like I could figure that out in my head right away. You guys know I can't do that. And then things like this, which you probably all have seen, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, spreadsheets inside of Google Docs. There's a lot of JavaScript involved with that. So one of the important things about this is that since these calculations and other things are done on the client, which means the user's computer or browser, it doesn't have to send the information to the server. So way back in the dark days when you did math and things on it or did a lot of things in a browser, it would send that information to the server, and then the server has to process it, which means you're using server time, which costs money, right? Why have your own server do stuff when you can have the user's computer do it? So that's one of the benefits of JavaScript too, is you're offloading stuff to the user's computer. That's it. These are just definitions of things for the script we're going to do, but we're going to do this little script first. So let me, wow, I opened a lot of windows there. You didn't have to open all those, but I did. Okay, so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to open this, go back to the file that we used here, and I started a code for you, or a script down here. So it's about line 202. It's where it says script. So this is another way you can put, and I didn't really talk about that, where you can put JavaScript, but you can put it directly in tags like we did with the button up there. You can put it inside the script tag in the body. You can also have linked, we did talk about that. You can have linked JavaScripts that are stored in a separate file, about like an external CSS file. So it's a .js file, you link to it, and then those scripts are available to the page that you're on. So there's a number of ways to include the JavaScript on your page. Okay, so we're looking at this where it says, and I do have, like I said, there's explanations for a lot of these terms. These are just pieces of JavaScript. And it's definitely a new language, completely different. Yeah, completely different from HTML and CSS. It's kind of a full-blown programming language at this point. People used to call it a scripting language. I guess it still is. But it is, so it does incorporate a lot of programming concepts and things. And if you do know other programming languages, a lot of this stuff will be familiar. Things like loops and arrays and variables and things like that. So there are definitions for a lot of this stuff down below here if we don't get to them while we're talking about it here. Okay, so I've got document.eventListener and then DOM content loaded, blah, blah, blah. I tried to put some comments in here to explain some stuff. So this adds an event listener, which is something that listens for an event, to see that the page is loaded. It doesn't try to execute this before the page is loaded. You actually don't technically have to do this way, but there's lots of ways to do things with JavaScript as well, but it's kind of a safety thing. Safety first, right? So then we're going to go down below that, and we're going to say So after it says function here, and then you've got a bracket, just like you do in CSS, and the brackets are matched, right? So here's a yellow one, here's a purple one in my case, depends on your VS Code. But just like you have, you can have brackets that alternate, you can have quotes that alternate, and it tells the browser what goes inside of what kind of thing. I know that didn't make a lot of sense, but it probably will later. Okay, so just go down to the next line, the blank one that says we're gonna select a div with the ID info and set its inner HTML, which is basically its contents. And then we're gonna display the title, the background color, and the day this page was last updated. So how are we gonna do that? So let's go ahead and say document dot get element by ID. So thankfully, a lot of this stuff is built into VS Code, so you don't have to type all this, right? I just typed a G, and I got get element by ID, and then I'm going to put my parentheses, and then inside of a single quote, I'm going to put info2. And what is that referring to? If I look up here just a little bit, there's div ID equals info2. So we have a div that's empty, right? There's nothing in it. It has a class of exercise, but I don't even think I'm using that. So just look at where it says div ID equals info2. So we are accessing, what JavaScript can do is access the HTML elements using the DOM or the document object model. So we are basically accessing the thing that has an ID of info2. And then I'm going to put a dot there, and I'm going to say inner HTML, and then equals. So what are we doing here? We are accessing something called info2, which is this, I'll try to scroll so I can see both, which is this div, and then we're going to set it to a new, we're going to basically put some content inside the inner HTML, which is the HTML inside that element. Or the contents of that element, if you want to think about it that way. Yeah. Check down here. Check down here, and it'll talk about that kind of stuff. I don't want to spend all day on one script, but okay. So then I'm going to go to the next line. It doesn't really have to be on the next line, but I'm going to put it on the next line. I'm going to say put double quotes, and you can put HTML inside of here. So we're basically going to write to this element. So I'm going to put H3, what is that? That's a tag. I'm just putting an H3 tag in here. And I'm going to say this is an example script. And then I've got to close my H3. So this is just HTML. So you can write HTML with JavaScript. Look at that. It's already doing it. So even though this looks like HTML code, which it is, we are writing it to the page using JavaScript. So you can have, that's one of the great things that JavaScript can do is add things to your page. So then I'm going to use a plus symbol, which is the concatenation operator. It adds things together, not adds like math, but it puts things together. So we're going to say we want to write an H3, and then we also want to write, I'm going to go back to quotes. So this is called a string when it's in quotes. When you want it to just write, it's just text most of the time. So I'm going to say the title of the web page is, and then I'll put a semicolon there, even though that's not part of the code or anything. And then I'm going to put another plus. I'm going to go here. So what did that do? That wrote, the title of the web page is plot. Well, it didn't write that. It went away because I think it's in the middle of this script. So we'll finish it and see if I have a mistake somewhere. The title of the web page is, and that's a quote, and then the plus again, and then document dot title. And then a plus. Oh, now it is there. So look at this. It says, I'm going to keep jumping back and forth. It says the title of the web page is JavaScript Demo 1. Did I write JavaScript Demo 1 here? No. JavaScript knows that. So the document is basically your web page document. And the title is an object on that page. It's also a property of the document. So we're basically accessing this is called dot notation. We're accessing the title of our document. So JavaScript knows this, and if I looked at the top, take my word for it, the name of this or the title of this document is JavaScript Demo 1. So I didn't have to write that. JavaScript knows that secretly. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to put a plus there, and I'm going to put some more HTML. So every time you put the HTML, you got to put it in these quotes. And what is that? That's a break, the old break tag, right? So I'm going to put a break tag and then another plus. And then let's jump down. So I put some explanations for that right here. Let's jump down. These are comments. I forgot to mention how these comments work. So this is an HTML comment, right? It has a bracket, exclamation, dash, dash, and then we've got dash, dash, bracket. Again, that's an HTML comment. JavaScript comments are like CSS comments. If it's a multi-line comment, it has slash and then star or asterisk, and then asterisk slash to end it. If it's a single line comment, it's just forward slash twice. So there's both kinds of comments are in here. So in my VS Code, comments are in green. So this is not JavaScript or HTML or anything. These are just comments to explain that. All right. So what did we do? We got our info2, and we're going to set its inner HTML, which is basically the HTML on it. And then we're going to add the title, the background color, and the last updated. So we did the title. Now we're going to add the rest of them down here. I'm just going to go down below here to do that. So I have my last plus there. So I'm still sticking things together, and a break, right? And then I've got another plus. And then I'm going to say in quotes, the background color of the web page, I guess I could have written this for you guys, is, and then a colon, and then a space, and then I'm going to do a plus again. And then next line, it doesn't have to be the next line, but I'm doing it on the next line. I'm going to say window dot get computed value. Get computed, it's not going to do it right away, is it? Or get computed style, sorry. No, it is the get computed style. And then parentheses, I know this, it's hard for me to talk and type this at the same time. Document dot body. I'll just do this and then I'll talk about it after. You guys can pause and read it if you want. Get property value. And in single quotes. I've stopped narrated. You're probably happy. Background dash color. And then a plus. And then a break. Break tag. And then another plus. And then we're down to the last line. So let me just write this one. We're going to do the page was last updated on. Page was last updated on. And then the last plus, and then document dot last modified. And then a semicolon. And I think we got it. Did it work? Let's see. And then I'll go back and explain a little bit of this. It did work. Amazing. I had no typos in there. So that's where VS Code will help you, because it spells out these crazy JavaScript terms for you. You don't have to type that all, right? You could just start typing it and then use your arrow key and hit return, or click on it if you want to use the old school mouse method. But let's see what that did. So it said the title of the web page is .javascript demo 1, which it actually is. If you looked up at the top, it's called JavaScript demo 1. The background color is RGB 191215243. How did it know that? It actually went to, it's getting that from the DOM, but it's actually going to, let me show you the CSS. Here's the CSS. Here's the background color of the body right there. So all these colors are in the main CSS, which I gave you guys. So it's getting that information for you and printing it on the page. We didn't have to, let me go back to the code here. We didn't have to look that up or anything. It knows this stuff, right? So it gave me the background color, and it's doing the page was last updated on 11/19/2023 at 14:57. It's like military time, 2:57:45. It's almost Thanksgiving. Oh, I gotta order a turkey. This reminded me. But there you go. So it's writing that stuff for us, and I kind of skipped over a little bit of this. But window is your browser window, basically. Get computed style is the styles of your document, and this is we're saying get computed style of the body here. So document.body is the body. That's our body tag, right? And then get property value is the value for that style. So what is that? That all ends up being this RGB color. I know I'm probably losing you guys, but yeah. So what we're doing is we're accessing things that the browser knows about the page through the document object model. And so we're basically saying we want the value of the body's computed style, the background color. Here's the background color. Right, I forgot that part. That's the parameter or the specifics of that. So we want the background color property for our body for our browser window. So it's kind of like an address to the thing, right? And then the last part says this page was last updated on, and then document last modified. So document is our web page document again. We've seen that a bunch of times. And then last modified is called a property. That's a property of a document. So documents can have, or objects can have properties, and one is last modified. What is last modified? It's just the last time this page was modified, which was like 3 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, something like that. I think that is it. I know that was a little bit quick on the coding part, and I'm not expecting you guys to understand all that right away. Take a look at the end part of that page. It has descriptions for that if you want to look at that stuff. But that's just a little example to get you guys going, and you'll probably see some more videos from me and or other people about JavaScript. But like I said, for this class, for the intermediate class, if you're seeing this in the intermediate class, I don't expect you to be a JavaScript master, in this little part of JavaScript that we're doing, but I would like you to be able to recognize different pieces of JavaScript, like objects and properties and methods and things like that. We didn't really talk about methods, but and maybe be able to see a script and kind of figure out what's going on, and then maybe be able to get a script and then modify it for your own use. That would be pretty good for this level. And then, like I said, there's 2 other JavaScript classes all about JavaScript if you like this kind of thing. So this is definitely into the developer territory versus designing, right, or UX or anything. This is real, like, hard, actual coding stuff. So, but if you like this stuff, there's lots of jobs and lots of money to be made doing this stuff. But I hope that helps a little bit with just what JavaScript can do and just a couple little examples. And I will talk to you again later.